Welcome to The Deep Dive. We're here today to unpack an incredible stack of sources, really. It's a comprehensive compendium charting the complete timeline and lore of a universe that's, well, kept millions hooked for over 2 decades now. Grey's Anatomy, Private Practice, and Station 19. Think of this as your essential guide. We're pulling out the most important nuggets, the surprising connections, and those pivotal moments that really weave these shows together into one massive story.
That's absolutely right. We've been given this meticulously assembled chronological timeline, and it's built straight from the primary source material of the shows themselves. So it'd be Grey's Anatomy, seasons 1 all the way through 21.
Wow, 20.
Yeah. Private Practice, seasons 1 through 6, and Station 19, seasons 1 through 7. Our mission today is really to navigate this sprawling narrative, highlight the key pulse points, track the major character journeys, and, help you understand the intricate tapestry of this whole medical and first responder dynasty.
Okay, so we're going on a journey through, over 20 years of in-universe history?
Right.
Starting right from that nervous first day of surgical internships at Seattle Grace.
Right.
All the way to catastrophic disasters, life-altering medical breakthroughs, and those deeply personal decisions that just ripple across all the shows. We'll even take a look at some material that the source mentions has a kind of debated status, like the video game adaptation.
Exactly. Our goal is to give you a thorough but, engaging look at the entire saga.
Yeah.
We'll focus on the pivotal points and the character developments that really define it. So, let's dive deep into this remarkable compendium.
Okay, let's do it. Starting at the absolute beginning, back in 2005, the source material's timeline kicks off right there with the very first episode, A Hard Day's Night, at Seattle Grace Hospital.
Exactly. That's ground zero for everything. It introduces our core group of surgical interns. Meredith Grey, Christine Yang, Izzie Stevens, Alex Karev, and George O'Malley. M.A.G.I.C, exactly. The source notes, they're quickly, affectionately dubbed that by fans. They arrive, green and eager under the watchful, often pretty terrifying, eyes of Chief of Surgery Richard Weber and their senior resident Miranda Bailey.
Yeah, Bailey.
Oh, yeah. Bailey earns her famous, maybe infamous nickname, the Nazi, almost immediately. Really sets the tone for the intense training they're about to go through.
And right from that very first episode, the source highlights how the personal drama is just completely, inextricably interwoven with the professional stuff. Meredith has that legendary one-night stand that turns out to be with her attending neurosurgeon, Derek Shepard. The source appendices point to this immediate romantic tension, noting it as like a fundamental cornerstone established right in that debut. It wasn't just a medical show from the get-go.
Not at all. It was a relationship drama from minute 1. And that setup, it defined the series for years. The source also details how the foundation of Meredith's character is laid early and really deeply. It's tied intrinsically to her complicated relationship with her mother, Ellis Grey.
The famous surgeon.
World-renowned, boundary-pushing surgeon, a legend in her field. But tragically, the source reveals she's now suffering from early-onset Alzheimer's. So Meredith is caring for her while trying to launch her own demanding career.
That's a huge weight.
It is. And Ellis's past affair with Chief Weber is also explicitly mentioned in the source. It's a significant, long-buried backstory element that, profoundly shapes Meredith's perspective on relationships, commitment, and the whole medical world itself. It's not just a secret. It's like this generational trauma woven into the hospital's history.
Okay, so season 2 rolls around. And the source notes this is where the show really explodes, becomes a cultural phenomenon. I guess with a longer season, they had more room to really explore these characters and relationships.
Precisely. 27 episodes. The narrative could really breathe and delve into these complex arcs. And the core love triangle that defined those early seasons, Meredith, Derek, and Derek's estranged wife, Addison Montgomery Shepard, arrives so dramatically in that season 1 finale cliffhanger.
Oh, that moment.
Iconic, right. The source appendix highlights it. Addison walks into the hospital lobby, sees Meredith, and delivers that line, "You must be the one who's been screwing my husband."
Ooh.
Yeah. Season 2 dedicates significant time exploring that fallout, focusing on Derek's choice to, try and repair his marriage with Addison.
Yeah.
It's a decision that deeply impacts all 3 of them and really sets the stage for so much of the show's early emotional turmoil.
And you absolutely cannot talk about early Greys without immediately bringing up the Denny Duquette arc. That was huge. Everyone was talking about it.
Oh, definitely. The source appendix calls it one of the most memorable and controversial storylines for a reason. It involves Izzie Stevens' romance with Denny, this really charming patient waiting for a heart transplant. As his condition gets worse, Izzie makes this desperate, ethically, fraught decision that shocked viewers and the characters. The source meticulously notes this act. She cuts his LV80 wire.
Okay, just to clarify for anyone listening who might not remember the LV80 wire, what exactly was that doing?
Ah, right. Good point. The source explains it was a left ventricular assist device. So basically a mechanical pump helping his failing heart. Izzie's goal in cutting the wire was actually to make his condition seem worse.
Intentionally?
Intentionally. To trigger a medical emergency that would bump him up the transplant list faster. She was desperate, hoping to save his life.
But the gamble didn't pay off in the end.
Tragically, no. He gets the heart transplant shortly after the plan, works. But he dies soon after from a stroke, alone in his hospital room during the hospital prom. The source lists this as having massive repercussions. Not just for Izzie, her career's on the line. She's shattered by grief and guilt. But also for the rest of the staff. They have to grapple with the ethical fallout,
Yeah.
What happened, Izzie's role in it, it really solidified the show's willingness to push those ethical boundaries for dramatic effect. Sparked a lot of debate.
Let's not forget another moment of just pure gut-wrenching intensity in that era, the two-part bomb threat episode. That was nail-biting stuff.
Oh, yeah. The source details this terrifying event vividly. A patient comes in with unexploded homemade bazooka ordnance lodged inside his chest cavity.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. A paramedic, Hannah Davies, initially has her hand inside the patient, stopping the bleeding around the device, but she panics, pulls her hand out, and Meredith Grey just impulsively steps in, puts her own hand directly inside the patient's body to stabilize the bomb.
Unbelievable courage. Or maybe recklessness.
Both, probably. The tension was incredible. And the source notes the tragic outcome. Bomb squad member Dylan Young is killed when the ordnance explodes after Meredith successfully removes it and hands it to him just outside the OR. It was a defining early moment, high-stakes medical drama colliding with immense personal bravery and that ever-present threat of sudden, violent death that hangs over these characters.
Also in this packed early era, Cristina Yang has an ectopic pregnancy with Preston Burke's child. The source notes that further complicates their already intense, tricky relationship dynamic.
Right. The source points to her collapsing in the OR as the dramatic reveal of the pregnancy. It really highlights the physical and emotional toll of their high-pressure lives.
And then Mark Sloan arrives.
McSteamy. Yeah, the source highlights his arrival as key. Derek's former best friend, Addison's lover from New York. He's initially there to win Addison back, but the source notes his character quickly develops these significant connections with other characters, like Callie Torres and later Lexi Gray. Adds another layer of complexity to the whole interwoven personal lives at the hospital. He really became a central figure.
Right.
And amidst all this drama, you have Miranda Bailey's pregnancy and the birth of her son, Tuck, in this period. It serves to humanize the incredibly demanding, seemingly invincible resident we first met. Shows her life outside the OR.
Okay, season 3. This brings big departures, crucial setups for spin-offs. Burke's hand tremor from being shot at the end of season 2 becomes a major plot point.
Yes, and Cristina helps cover it up, as the source notes. This shared secret leads to major ethical conflict and strain between them. Really highlights the pressures and compromises they make for their careers and, for each other.
And then the ferry boat accident. That was a huge event.
Oh, massive. The source meticulously documents that multi-episode arc. Huge disaster, tons of casualties brought to Seattle Grace. And specifically, Meredith gets accidentally knocked into the freezing water and nearly drowns, becoming a patient herself.
That's where she has the afterlife experience.
Exactly. The source details that while unconscious, she sees deceased former patients like Denny and Dylan again in these visions. And tragically, it also notes her mother, Ellis Gray, passes away during this chaotic period, shortly after having a brief, really poignant moment of lucidity with Meredith. It's a period of immense collective trauma for the hospital and profound personal loss and transition for Meredith.
And this season also served as the launch pad for the first spin-off.
You are. The source identifies the two-part episode, The Other Side of This Life, as the explicit backdoor pilot for private practice. It shows Addison Montgomery taking a trip to L.A. to visit her friends, Naomi and Sam Bennett, seeing their private practice, Oceanside Wellness.
Planting the seed.
Totally. This visit, detailed in the source, plants the seed for Addison wanting a different life, a different kind of practice environment. Ultimately leads to her decision to leave Seattle Grace for L.A. The source even notes Richard Weber flies down there to try and convince her to stay, which really emphasizes how valuable she was and how significant her departure felt.
And then the season 3 finale, a major emotional blow, especially for Cristina.
Huge. Preston Burke leaves her at the altar on their wedding day and just departs Seattle Grace entirely. This event is marked in the source as Isaiah Washington's departure from the show, and it's a profoundly defining moment for Cristina's character arc. Forces her to reevaluate everything, her ambitions, her relationships.
And just as that era ends, we get a new beginning with Lexi Gray.
Yep. Meredith's paternal half-sister is introduced as a new intern right at the end of the season. She starts her own journey at the hospital, eventually tying her into the core group. Oh, and the source also notes George and Callie's impulsive Vegas marriage and George's subsequent affair with Izzie are major relationship points, reaching their dramatic peaks here. So much happening.
Okay, moving into season 4. There's a shift in the hospital hierarchy. The original interns become residents. Mostly, right?
Yeah. The source points out Meredith, Cristina, Alex, and Izzie successfully make the jump to surgical residence. But here's the twist. George O'Malley failed his intern exam. He has to repeat his intern year.
Awkward.
Incredibly awkward. The source notes this creates really challenging dynamics, as his closest friends are now technically supervising him. Meanwhile, Lexi Gray integrates more fully as a prominent new intern, building her relationships, especially that close friendship with George, and later, her significant relationship with Mark Sloan.
And we get a new head of cardio?
Yes, Dr. Erica Hahn. The source notes her introduction, stepping into the role left vacant by Burke. And crucially, the source highlights her romantic relationship with Callie Torres. The compendium notes this was a really significant step in exploring Callie's bisexuality, which becomes a long-running, absolutely central aspect of her character journey throughout the series.
That was a big deal at the time.
Definitely. This era also sees Meredith and Derek starting a clinical trial for an Alzheimer's treatment, a recurring storyline motif that ties directly back to Ellis Gray's condition and Meredith's family history, always blending the personal and professional.
The source mentions a private practice crossover during this season too, but notes it was maybe affected by the Raiders' strike.
Yeah, the source briefly mentions it. Addison returns to Seattle Grace and Peace of My Heart. And the source notes the episode kind of served to show viewers how much had changed at Seattle Grace since she'd left, highlighting the different paths everyone was on.
Now, this is interesting. The compendium includes a detailed section on Grey's Anatomy, the video game, released in 2009. It places it chronologically within the season 4 era.
It does, yeah.
The debated canonicity. It's fascinating. The source includes this, but also addresses its status directly. What does the compendium actually say about whether this game counts in the official timeline?
Well, the source is very clear here, treats it cautiously. It describes the game as the main interactive adaptation, but explicitly states its canonicity is widely debated and generally considered non-canonical by the fan base and even some creators.
So what happened in the game?
It features an original plot set during Season 4. There's a diphtheria outbreak, leads to a hospital quarantine scenario. But crucially, the source notes these specific events, the outbreak, the quarantine, their outcomes, they're never mentioned, referenced, or integrated into the TV series itself in any later episodes. It even introduces game-specific characters, like a love interest for Cristina, Dr. Vince Bennett, who, again, never appears in the show proper.
So while the game exists, uses the characters, the source essentially concludes that because the show never acknowledges these events for the purpose of tracking the core, continuous narrative timeline of the series, it's treated as non-canonical. Or maybe like an alternate continuity.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
It's an interesting detail to include, acknowledging the universe's expansion even into these potentially separate paths.
Okay, moving into season 5, more significant character introductions, major crises. Owen Hunt arrives.
Yes, Dr. Owen Hunt, trauma surgeon, arrives carrying the heavy emotional and psychological weight of PTSD from his service in Iraq. The source notes he becomes a long-term regular, and his presence brings his focus on military medicine, trauma, the challenges of reintegrating, especially in his intense, really complex relationship with Cristina Yang.
And the relationship that would become one of the show's absolute cornerstones begins here, Calzona.
Absolutely. The source notes Dr. Arizona Robbins replaces the deceased head of pediatric surgery and, well, pretty quickly forms one of the show's most significant, long-lasting, and beloved LGBTQ+ pairings with Callie Torres. Their relationship, its evolution challenges, the family they eventually build, becomes absolutely central to the show for many seasons, really broke new ground on mainstream TV.
Izzie's storyline takes a really dark, serious turn in season 5. It goes beyond her grief over Denny to a personal health crisis.
Yeah, the source details her starting to hallucinate Denny Duquette again. Initially, she thinks maybe she's losing her mind or seeing a ghost, but it's eventually revealed to be a physical symptom, a manifestation of an underlying illness.
Cancer.
Stage 4 metastatic melanoma, life-threatening cancer that is spread throughout her body. Her battle with it, the grueling experimental treatment she undergoes, her fight for survival. It forms a central, deeply emotional arc for the season. It involves multiple characters rallying to support her, including Derek, who performs this complex surgery on her brain tumor.
Amidst all that darkness and Izzie fighting for her life, there are these moments of iconic love and commitment that define Meredith and Derek. The source details their unconventional but really meaningful post-it wedding.
Oh yeah, in the residence lounge. Unable to make time for a formal ceremony because of Izzie's condition, the chaos of their lives.
Yeah.
They just scribble their vows, their commitment to each other, on a Post-it note stuck to a locker.
So simple, but so them.
Exactly. The source highlights it as this iconic, non-traditional declaration of love and commitment that signifies their bond more profoundly than any grand wedding might have. And simultaneously, the source notes, Izzie marries Alex Karev while she's undergoing treatment. In a ceremony originally planned for Meredith and Derek, which they gifted to Alex and Izzie instead, really highlights the strength of their friendships.
Season 5 also features another significant crossover event with private practice, weaving the shows even closer.
Yes. The source details the storyline involving Addison's brother, Archer Montgomery. He's a neurologist who develops these aggressive neurocysts that need specialized care. So Addison brings him to Seattle, Grace, specifically for Derek to operate, acknowledging Derek's unique neurosurgical skill.
So that brings Addison back to Seattle again.
Right, and Naomi and Sam Bennett come too. The source specifically mentions Sam having an asthma attack and getting treated by Bailey and Naomi, a direct professional interaction highlighting how their skills intersect. This whole arc just deepens the connection between the shows, showing they rely on each other's specific medical talents across the country.
And the season ends with just a massive, shocking, incredibly emotional cliffhanger. The source details it extensively. A patient hit by a bus, catastrophic injuries, unrecognizable.
Yeah, doctors fighting to save him, identity unknown, until Meredith Grey identifies him. How? By him tracing his intern nickname, 007, onto her hand.
George O'Malley.
George O'Malley. And at the exact same time, Izzie Stevens codes after her brain surgery, leaving the fates of two original M.A.G.I.C. characters just hanging in the balance. Brutal ending.
Okay, so the timeline moves into a new era after that, marked by a major institutional change following that devastating finale, the forced merger of Seattle Grace with Mercy West Medical Center in Season 6.
Right, a failing Mercy West. The source notes this creates the slightly unwieldy name Seattle Grace Mercy West Hospital. A larger entity, but it unfortunately leads to a lot of tension, staff layoffs, increased competition among the doctors.
And the new arrivals from Mercy West.
Exactly. The source specifically mentions April Kepner and Jackson Avery transferring over. They become long-term main characters, adding fresh dynamics. Other Mercy West residents like Reed Adamson and Charles Percy also arrive, setting up dynamics that will tragically intersect with the hospital's future.
Izzie's storyline continues briefly into this era after she survives the cancer scare. But things don't go smoothly.
No. The source details a medication error she makes with a patient, Sarah Fremont. It's exacerbated by the stress of the merger and her recovery. She ends up getting fired by Chief Weber for this error and some related behavioral issues.
And Bailey tries to fix it.
Yeah. The source notes Bailey, trying to rectify the error, actually flies that patient to Los Angeles for Addison Montgomery to treat complications.
Wow.
A direct connection showing how events at Seattle Grace Mercy West have consequences reaching into the private practice world.
Izzie's departure from Seattle is also marked in this era after the firing.
The source mentions she leaves Alex Karev, believing he was partly responsible for her firing because he was honest with Weber. Creates a rift. There's a later brief return detailed in the source where Alex, in this really difficult, pivotal moment, tells her she needs to leave for good, wants her to find happiness away from him and all the hospital drama. The source notes this marks her final significant appearance for many years, ending her initial long run.
There's another specific crossover in Season 6, detailed in the source too, involving Mark Sloan and Addison again.
Yes. Mark flies Addison to Seattle again, this time for a deeply personal medical reason. He needs her expertise to perform complex in utero surgery on his pregnant teenage daughter, Sloan Riley, who has come to live with him. Just further highlights the interconnectedness of their professional lives and the gravity of the cases that prompt these cross-country collaborations.
And then comes the event the source highlights as fundamentally changing the trajectory of the show and its characters, the mass shooting by Gary Clark.
Oh, yeah. The source details this horrific event with chilling precision and its profound impact. Gary Clark, the grieving husband of a deceased patient, believes the doctors killed his wife. He enters the hospital with a gun, seeking revenge on the doctors he blames, primarily Derek, Lexi, and Richard Weber.
He shoots multiple people.
Indiscriminately. The source lists key characters like Derek and Alex Karev among those shot, and confirms the tragic deaths of the new residents, Reed Adamson and Charles Percy. Adds immediate shocking losses among the newer staff.
Faley trying to save Charles in the elevator, that was heartbreaking.
Unforgettable scene. The source specifically mentions it. And Cristina operating on a wounded Derek at gunpoint under immense pressure. Meredith suffering a miscarriage from the stress while operating on Owen. And finally, Richard Weber, who knows Clark, bravely confronting him and managing to convince him to turn the gun on himself. Ends the siege, but leaves this indelible scar on the hospital and everyone in it.
The aftermath in Season 7, detailed extensively, shows profound trauma rippling through the staff.
Lasting trauma. The source notes Cristina's severe PTSD is a major storyline. Leads her to temporarily quit surgery, just unable to function in that high-pressure environment where her life was threatened. Derek resigns as chief in the wake of the security failure, feeling responsible. Owen Hunt takes over the position. Meredith is initially not cleared for surgery, just highlights the deep psychological toll on all the survivors.
And Amelia Shepard, Derek's sister from private practice, makes her first significant appearance on Grey's in Season 7.
She does. The source notes she visits Seattle to reconcile with Derek after the shooting, works on a neuro case with him. And the compendium specifically links this visit to her storyline over on Private Practice, where she was dealing with the news of Derek's shooting and thinking about visiting him. Demonstrates those intentional narrative threads connecting the shows on a deeply personal level.
Callie's pregnancy with Mark's baby is revealed in Season 7. That came after they had a brief relationship in the aftermath of the shooting trauma, right?
Exactly. And the source mentions Arizona initially leaves for Africa for a global health thing, having reservations about raising a child with Mark. But she returns, realizes she wants to be with Callie, and agrees to raise the baby together. Sets up their future as a family unit.
Which leads directly into the unique musical episode, Song Beneath the Song.
Yes. Unique is one word for it. The source details it meticulously. Callie is critically injured in a devastating car accident. While pregnant, an accident caused by Arizona being distracted while proposing. As doctors fight desperately to save both her and the baby, Callie experiences this dreamlike, out-of-body musical hallucination where the cast sings iconic songs from the show's history.
Sophia is born during this.
Yep. Her daughter, Sophia Robin Sloan Torres, is born prematurely during this event. And the source notes Addison Montgomery, even guest, appears to provide her neonatal expertise, helping with the critical care, again, showcasing those deep professional connections. Callie accepts Arizona's proposal while recovering, solidifying their commitment.
Meanwhile, Meredith faces major repercussions in Season 7 after tampering with Derek's Alzheimer's clinical trial.
Right. The source specifies she switched the placebo and the active drug for the final patient, who happened to be Adele Weber, Richard's wife, hoping to help her.
And Alex finds out.
Alex finds out. The source notes he reveals this ethical breach to Owen, who is chief. Leads to Meredith's firing, significant issues with her medical license, and most devastatingly for Meredith and Derek, problems with their adoption of Zola, who's temporarily removed from their home. Major consequences.
Season 8 sees the original residents now 5th years, along with Jackson and April from the merger facing their board exams.
A major professional milestone. The source highlights this as a key arc, causing immense stress and drama as they navigate the high-stakes tests and plan their futures. Shows their professional growth and ambitions. The source also mentions another Amelia Shepard crossover from Private Practice in Season 8. She brings her patient, Erica Warner.
Cooper's ex from Private Practice.
That's the one, mother of his son Mason. Brings her to Seattle for Derek to consult on a complex case. Another direct storyline connection drawing from the Private Practice world into Grey's.
And this whole era culminates in the absolutely devastating plane crash cliffhanger in the Season 8 finale.
Yeah. The source lists the group heading to Boise for a surgical consult. Meredith, Derek, Cristina, Mark, Lexi, and Arizona. Their small medical transport plane crashes in the remote woods, leaves their fates uncertain, and sets up one of the most tragic events in the entire universe's history.
Okay, the immediate aftermath of that crash defines the start of Season 9, and it's brutal.
Absolutely brutal. The source confirms the immediate tragedies. Lexi Gray dies at the crash site from her injuries, with Mark Sloan by her side. heartbreaking scene. Mark himself, though rescued and brought back to Seattle, suffers extensive internal injuries. After a brief period of apparent improvement, they call it the surge, his condition rapidly deteriorates. The source states he succumbs to his injuries, taken off life support according to his living will, cementing his death, this immense loss for the hospital and the remaining survivors.
And the other survivors endure lasting physical and emotional scars.
Profoundly impacted. The source notes, Arizona Robbins suffers that severe leg injury, leading to amputation by Alex, a decision Callie ultimately made, creating long-term conflict between them. Derek's dominant hand is severely injured, threatening his entire career as a neurosurgeon. Cristina is deeply traumatized, temporarily moving to Minnesota to escape the memories.
In the wake of the crash, the survivors sue.
They do. Meredith, Derek, Cristina, Arizona, and Callie representing Mark as Sophia's guardian. They sue the airline, win a massive settlement. The source specifies $15 million each after lawyer fees, life-altering money.
But because Owen chose the airline, the hospital is found liable too.
Exactly. And that huge payout ultimately bankrupts Seattle Grace Mercy West, pushes it right to the brink of closure.
But they use this crisis to save the hospital.
A truly dramatic rescue. The source details the brilliant solution. The plane crash survivors pool their settlement money, get additional major backing from the Harper Avery Foundation, facilitated by Catherine Avery, and they collectively purchase the hospital themselves.
And rename it.
Renamed Gray Sloan Memorial Hospital, to forever honor Lexi Gray and Mark Sloan, the surgeons they lost. Jackson Avery, as the foundation's representative, becomes a significant authority figure on the new board, a real turning point.
Season 9 also features a superstorm hitting Seattle.
Right, coinciding with major personal events. The source highlights Meredith going into labor and giving birth to her first son, Derek Bailey Shepard, during a power outage. Difficult circumstances. Simultaneously, Richard Weber gets electrocuted in the basement trying to restore power. Another major life-threatening event during the storm chaos.
Season 10 marks a huge transition, Cristina Yang's final arc as a series regular.
Yeah, a big one. The source notes a pivotal moment where she's nominated for the Harper Avery Award for her groundbreaking cardiac conduit research, but she doesn't win. And the source explicitly states this is allegedly due to a conflict of interest, with the Harper Avery Foundation co-owning Gray Sloan.
That disappointment plays a role in her leaving.
It contributes, yeah, along with other factors. Then the source details Preston Burke making this brief, unexpected return after years away.
Wow, Burke comes back.
Briefly, he's running a prestigious cardiothoracic research hospital in Zurich, planning to step down. Recognizes Cristina's talent and ambition, offers her his job, an incredible opportunity. The source states Cristina ultimately accepts and departs for Switzerland. Marks her exit as a main character and a really fitting culmination of her professional journey.
And immediately stepping into a prominent role after Cristina leaves is Dr. Maggie Pierce.
Yes, her dramatic introduction.
Ah.
And the source reveals the shocking twist. She's the biological daughter of Ellis Gray and Richard Weber, a secret kept for decades.
Making her Meredith's half-sister.
Exactly. Creates this completely new, complex family dynamic within the hospital's core group. Adds another layer to Richard Meredith's shared history.
Season 11 sees Derek accept that big job in Washington, D.C., the president's brain mapping initiative.
And the source notes this creates significant strain on his marriage with Meredith. They struggle to balance careers, kids across the country. Meanwhile, April and Jackson face that devastating tragedy. Their baby, Samuel Norbert Avery, diagnosed with type 2 osteogenesis imperfecta, dies shortly after birth.
That leads to their divorce eventually, right?
Deeply impacts their relationship, yeah. Leads to their divorce and prompts April to enlist in the Army as a trauma surgeon with Owen as a way to cope with her grief.
And then one of the most impactful, universe-altering events in the show's history.
Yeah.
Derek Shepard's death.
Yeah. Just huge. The source details the tragic circumstances. Catastrophic car accident after he stopped to help victims of a crash. Crucially, the source points to the inadequate medical care he receives at a smaller local hospital, Dillard Medical Center, as contributing significantly to the outcome.
So it wasn't just the crash.
Not entirely. Despite surviving the crash itself, he's declared brain dead due to the hospital's errors. And Meredith is forced to make that heartbreaking decision to take him off life support. Ends the life of the show's central male lead, Meredith's great love. Just devastating for the characters and the audience.
The timeline then jumps ahead within season 11. Meredith disappears for a while.
Reflecting her deep grief, the source states she leaves Seattle for nearly a year with Zola and Bailey, grappling with the loss, figuring out how to live without Derek. During this time away, the source notes, she gives birth to their third child, Ellis Shepard, named after her mother. She eventually returns to Seattle, a changed woman, beginning that incredibly challenging next chapter as a widow, single mother, and prominent surgeon.
Following the time jump in Meredith's return, Season 12 sees shifts in hospital leadership.
Right. Reflecting the evolving dynamics. The source notes, Miranda Bailey is appointed Chief of Surgery, a major achievement, and her storyline focuses on navigating the challenges of leading the hospital. Meredith, meanwhile, steps into Chief of General Surgery, shows her continued professional growth and leadership after everything she's endured.
And a significant source of tension arrives immediately. Callie starts dating Penny Blake.
Yeah, and the source highlights the immediate drama because Penny turns out to be one of the doctors who treated Derek at Dillard before he died.
Ouch.
Huge conflict. Intensifies when Penny later joins Sloan as a resident. Creates immense discomfort, outright conflict, especially with Amelia, Derek's sister, and Meredith. They struggle to interact with someone they associate with Derek's death, according to the source.
Meredith herself faces a brutal personal crisis in Season 12. The attack by a patient.
Horrific. The source details she's attacked by a patient named Lou, who has post-seizure hyperaggression. Her recovery is long, arduous. The source specifically notes temporary hearing loss, a wired jaw preventing her from speaking normally for a while. That episode, focusing on the attack and its aftermath, was incredibly powerful.
Season 12 also has major relationship drama and fallout. April and Jackson divorced.
Painful divorce, yeah. Unable to overcome their grief and differences after losing Samuel. But amidst the separation, April discovers she's pregnant with her second child, Harriet Kepner Avery. Keeps them connected through co-parenting.
And Callie and Arizona's custody battle.
Oh, that was bitter. Emotionally draining fight over Sophia when Callie wants to move to New York with Penny. The source notes Arizona is ultimately awarded sole custody. A devastating blow for Callie contributes to her eventual decision to leave Seattle later.
Dr. Nathan Riggs joins in Season 12, cardiothoracic surgeon with a mysterious past linked to Owen's sister Megan.
That's him. The source notes his complex, unresolved history with Megan Hunt, who disappeared during military service, presumed dead. His arrival and subsequent developing relationship with Meredith become a significant focus, tying into Owen's longstanding grief and search for his sister.
Alex Karev faces criminal charges in Season 12 after assaulting Andrew DeLuca.
Right. The source explains he brutally attacks DeLuca, mistakenly believing he was taking advantage of a drunk Joe Wilson. Severe consequences for Alex's suspension from surgery, forced to work in the Denny Duquette Memorial Clinic. A real professional setback while the legal case looms.
And the context for that, Joe's backstory, gets revealed around Seasons 12-13.
Exactly. The source clarifies Joe Wilson isn't her real name. She's actually already married to an abusive man, Dr. Paul Stadler, whom she fled years ago. This secret, the threat of Paul finding her, prevents her from legally marrying Alex or testifying for him in the assault case. Andrew eventually drops the charges, resolving the immediate legal crisis, but Joe's secret remains for a while.
Season 13 introduces Dr. Eliza Minnick, the consultant hired to revamp the residency program, causes conflict.
Significant conflict. The source notes she's hired by the board, specifically Catherine Avery, to implement new simulation methods. Clashes hugely with established attendings like Richard Weber, who sees it as an affront to his traditional teaching methods.
Arizona gets involved with Minnick?
Romantically, yes. The source mentions Arizona begins a relationship with Minnick, adding a personal layer to the professional conflict. And Meredith gets temporarily suspended for refusing to cooperate with Minnick's protocols. Shows the deep divisions this change creates.
Season 14 brings a major dramatic event. The return of Owen Hunt's sister, Megan Hunt.
Remarkable return. The source notes she was presumed dead for years after disappearing in Iraq, but found alive and rescued. Her return, detailed in the source, brings Nathan Riggs' unresolved past relationship with her right to the forefront. Significantly complicates his burgeoning relationship with Meredith. Teddy Altman also returns temporarily to support Owen during this emotional family reunion.
And this era marks the birth of the second spinoff. Ben Warren becomes a firefighter.
Exactly. The source identifies Dr. Ben Warren's decision to switch careers entirely in Season 14 as the explicit backdoor pilot for Station 19. Highlights his journey adapting to firefighting, introduces him to the Station 19 crew. The first official Station 19 episode in 2018 is noted, focusing on characters like Andy Herrera and Jack Gibson competing for captaincy, and Ben's initial training, expands the universe beyond the hospital walls.
Meredith achieves a major professional milestone around this time, too.
She does. The source explicitly notes she wins the Harper Avery Award, later renamed the Catherine Fives Award, for her groundbreaking abdominal wall transplant surgery on Megan Hunt, listed as a major achievement, recognizing her innovative surgical talent.
But that triumph is quickly followed by a major institutional crisis, the Harper Avery scandal in season 14.
Rocks the foundation, literally. The source details the shocking revelation. The revered Harper Avery sexually harassed women for years, used NDAs and settlements to silence victims. It specifies Ellis Gray's former research partner, Marie Cerrone, was one victim who comes forward. As a result, the foundation is renamed the Catherine Fox Foundation. The award follows suit, distancing itself from Harper's tainted legacy.
Jo Wilson's abusive ex-husband, Paul Stadler, actually appears in Seattle in season 14.
Her worst fears realized. The source notes a confrontation, then a hit-and-run involving Paul. He's admitted to Gray Sloan, declared brain dead. Jo, still legally his wife, faces an incredibly difficult decision and ultimately decides to donate his organs. An act of empowerment and closure after years of suffering.
Season 14 also sees key character departures. April Kepner leaves.
Yes, after a significant crisis of faith. She rediscovers it, but decides to leave Gray Sloan. The source notes she marries Matthew Taylor, her former fiancé whose wife had died at the hospital, and they leave to do medical aid work.
And Arizona Robbins leaves, too.
Also in season 14. Decides to move to New York with Sophia to be closer to Callie, who is single again, and to open the Robbins Herman Center for Women's Health with Dr. Nicole Herman. The source explicitly states both April and Arizona depart Gray Sloan, marking the exit of two long-running central characters.
Season 15 brings Teddy Altman back more permanently, pregnant with Owen's child, adds to the Owen-Amelia drama.
Oh yeah, Alex Karev becomes interim chief while Bailey takes a sabbatical, highlights his growth into a leadership role. And the source notes, Meredith starts dating again, tentatively exploring life after Derek, finding herself in a love triangle with Andrew DeLuca and the charming new ortho head, Dr. Atticus Lincoln.
A major windstorm hits Seattle in season 15. Traps people.
Causes a power outage. Traps several doctors in elevators. The source highlights pivotal relationship moments during this confinement. Meredith and DeLuca share a kiss in one elevator, deepening their connection. Nico Kim and Levi Schmidt share their first kiss in a trapped ambulance, starting the show's first major same-sex male relationship. The source also notes Catherine Fox is diagnosed with severe spinal chondrosarcoma, a major health crisis.
Another significant crossover in season 15 involves Station 19's fire chief, Lucas Ripley.
Tragic one. The source details he's admitted to Gray Sloan after collapsing from hydrofluoric acid exposure complications after a fire. Despite efforts by Maggie Pierce and others, Ripley dies. The source mentions his death deeply impacts Victoria Hughes, a Station 19 firefighter he was secretly dating and planning to propose to. Showcases the emotional fallout across both shows.
Meredith puts her license at risk again in season 15. Insurance fraud.
To save a young asylum seeker, Gabby Rivera, whose father couldn't afford surgery. The source notes Meredith lists her own daughter Ellis's name on the forms. This ethically questionable action, once discovered, has severe legal and professional repercussions.
Jo Wilson's personal story takes a deeply emotional turn in season 15 when she meets her birth mother.
Yeah, after searching for her. The source details the reunion, brings the devastating truth about her conception rape and her abandonment. This profoundly traumatic discovery sends Jo into a deep depression. The source notes she checks herself into a psychiatric facility for treatment, highlighting the show's continued exploration of complex mental health struggles.
The season 15 finale sees Teddy give birth to her and Owen's daughter, Allison Hunt. A moment of joy amidst the drama.
Right. But simultaneously, the source notes Andrew DeLuca takes the blame for Meredith's insurance fraud and gets arrested protecting her. And the episode ends with another cliffhanger. Jackson Avery disappears into the dense fog after an argument with Maggie, leaving his fate uncertain.
Okay, season 16 resolves some of that aftermath. Meredith faces the medical board.
She does. The source details her hearing. Past patients, colleagues, Alex, via a powerful letter, testify for her. Meredith confronts Dr. Paul Costello, a board member she realizes was involved in Derek's inadequate care. She keeps her license, gets rehired. However,
Bailey fires her anyway.
Bailey fires Meredith, Alex, and Richard for their roles and cover-ups in the fraud incident. Highlights the institutional fallout.
There's a major crossover in season 16 involving Joe's bar.
Yeah, a car crashes right into it.
Yeah.
Popular hangout for doctors and firefighters. The source details several patrons injured. Gray Sloan interns, Taryn Helm, Casey Parker, Levi Schmidt are specifically named among them. Station 19 firefighters respond, bring victims to Gray Sloan, physically brings characters from both shows together in a shared crisis.
Season 16 features a significant and maybe controversial character departure, Alex Karev.
Yeah, the source calls it unconventional and polarizing. Alex abruptly leaves Seattle and Jo. His departure is explained via letters sent to Meredith, Joe, Bailey, and Richard, a narrative choice necessitated by actor Justin Chambers' sudden exit.
What do the letters say?
He reveals he reconnected with Izzie Stevens, learned she secretly used their frozen embryos from years ago, and is raising their twin children, Eli and Alexis, in Kansas. The source states Alex decides to leave his life in Seattle to be with Izzie and their kids. Marks his departure through this storyline method, which, generated considerable discussion.
Andrew DeLuca's mental health becomes a major focus in this period.
A central focus. The source notes his increasing signs of mania, erratic behavior, eventually diagnosed as consistent with bipolar I disorder, like his father. There's a moment of clarity amidst his struggles where he makes a risky but correct diagnosis of a complex patient, Suzanne, aided by a deaf diagnostician, Dr. Lauren Riley. Showcases his talent even when ill, but his behavior strains his relationship with Meredith, worries his sister Karina.
Richard Weber also has some strange symptoms in season 16.
Concerning symptoms, tremors, hallucinations, impaired judgment, culminates in a confusing presentation at a medical conference. Fears he might have Alzheimer's like Ellis, but
Something else.
cobalt poisoning. The source clarifies it was caused by a faulty hip replacement leaching cobalt fragments into his bloodstream. And the diagnosis is specifically made by Andrew DeLuca in a moment of startling medical insight amidst his own struggles. Intersects their storylines, shows DeLuca's brilliance.
The COVID-19 pandemic profoundly impacts the universe starting in season 17, running concurrently with Station 19 season 4.
Profoundly. The source meticulously details the devastating toll on the hospital, staff, Seattle. Most notably, Meredith contracts a severe, life-threatening case of COVID, spends much of the season critically ill on a ventilator in this dreamlike beach state.
Where she sees Derek again.
Derek, George O'Malley, Lexi Gray, Mark Sloan. The source highlights these powerful emotional encounters with deceased loved ones, provides moments of reflection, closure, revisiting past trauma and joy while she fights for her life.
Andrew DeLuca. His story ends tragically in season 17.
Heartbreakingly. He'd previously identified a human trafficker, Opal, but struggled to be taken seriously due to his mental state. He's tragically stabbed while pursuing her again in a season 17 crossover with Station 19. Despite desperate efforts by Owen and Teddy at Gray Sloan, the source confirms Andrew dies from his injuries. A major character death resonates deeply across both shows, especially for Karina and Meredith.
Jackson Avery decides to leave Seattle in season 17, moves to Boston.
To run the Catherine Fox Foundation. His goal, the source notes, is to use its resources to tackle systemic healthcare inequality. A passion ignited by his experiences, he convinces April Kepner to move to Boston with him and Harriet for co-parenting. The source adds Tom Karachik, after surviving severe COVID, decides to join Jackson, seeking a new purpose.
Meredith recovers from COVID, becomes director of the residency program, but then she's recruited for research in Minnesota in season 18.
Right, by Dr. David Hamilton for groundbreaking Parkinson's research, leads to her splitting time between Seattle and Minnesota and reconnecting with transplant surgeon Dr. Nick Marsh, whom she'd met previously.
A gas pipeline explosion hits Seattle in seasons 18 and 5, Station 19. Another big crossover.
Huge incident. The source lists the tragic death of Station 19 firefighter Dean Miller. Has direct consequences for Gray Sloan characters. Ben Warren and Bailey become guardians of his daughter Prue, integrates Dean's legacy into their lives.
Owen gets injured too.
Severe leg injury after his car goes over a cliff transporting a donor heart. Amidst this crisis, Owen confesses to Dr. Cormac Hayes McWidow that he's been providing physician-assisted suicide drugs to dying soldiers. Morally complex revelation. The source notes this leads to Hayes leaving Seattle, unwilling to be complicit or report Owen.
Gray Sloan faces another institutional crisis in season 18. The residency program gets shut down.
First probation, then shut down by the Accreditation Council. The source attributes this to compounding issues, physician shortage, fallout from the Weber method, Richard's structured training approach, which, while having merits, contributed to problems. Bailey resigns as chief under the pressure. Meredith is appointed interim chief to navigate the crisis.
Season 19 marks a new beginning with a new class of interns, recruited to rebuild the program.
Exactly. Under Meredith, initially as interim chief, and Nick Marsh as residency director, the source lists them. Simone Griffith, Lucas Adams, who's revealed to be Amelia and Derek's nephew, linking the new class to the OGs Benson Bluquan, Jules Millen, and Miki Yasuda, infuses the hospital with fresh energy. Highlights the show's capacity for regeneration.
Meredith makes a major decision in season 19, moves to Boston permanently.
For her Alzheimer's research with Jackson, and crucially, for Zola to attend a gifted school there. Nick Marsh initially follows, but their relationship status becomes ambiguous. The source clarifies Meredith retains a recurring role narrating occasional appearances, maintaining her connection. Teddy Altman is appointed the new permanent chief of surgery after Meredith leaves Seattle.
Maggie Pierce also leaves Seattle in season 19.
Takes a prestigious cardiothoracic research position in Chicago. Necessitates her departure from Sloan. Leads to her separation and eventual divorce from Winston Ndugu, who stays in Seattle. Another significant character departure, end of a core relationship.
Okay, the source brings us right up to the most recent events. A massive wildfire threatening Seattle in 2024. Serves as a crossover for the Station 19 series finale, concurrent with the Grey's season 20 finale.
Exactly. Sloan is inundated with patients from the fire. Brings the two worlds together in a citywide crisis one last time for Station 19.
Meredith returns to Seattle during this chaos and makes a bold move with her Alzheimer's research.
Publishes it publicly, unauthorized, after Catherine Fox threatens to shut it down. Meredith resigns from the Fox Foundation in protest. Catherine retaliates swiftly, dramatically, firing key staff. Teddy, Owen, and Amelia.
Wow.
Bailey immediately challenges Catherine's decision, setting up conflict. Amidst all this, Jo Wilson discovers she's pregnant with Link's child.
Season 21, the current one, deals with the aftermath of those firings.
Heavily. The source highlights Bailey navigating the understaffed hospital, fighting Catherine. Ben Warren returns to Sloan as a surgical resident, returning to his medical roots amidst the crisis.
Really? Back to being a resident?
According to the source, yes. Jo and Link are planning their wedding, expecting twins. Mika Yasuda tragically loses her sister in a car accident involving Mika, leading her to resign. Levi Schmidt accepts a research position in Texas, further depleting staff. And Teddy and Owen are exploring an open marriage amidst the stress.
And finally, the source details the dramatic season 21 finale, very recent, May 15th, 2025, Jo and Link's wedding day, and a hostage situation.
Terrifying. In an OR, a patient's mother, Jenna Gatlin, demands surgery for her daughter Dylan, threatening an explosion within a acetylene tank. Meredith returns during this, planning to sell her shares. Amelia, Simone, and Lucas are forced to operate under duress.
Does the surgery work?
It's successful. Jenna surrenders, claims the tank was empty. But in a final shocking twist, Dylan's father reveals the tank was not empty. Jenna had opened the valve.
No.
The source concludes the season with a devastating cliffhanger. The OR floor explodes just as Link is about to use cautery in an adjacent OR. Leaves the fates of multiple core characters completely unknown. End scene.
Wow. That is over 20 years of intense, interwoven story, crisis, change, all charted directly from this compendium. One thing that clearly stands out is just how deeply interconnected this universe became, especially through those deliberate crossover events, the source details.
Absolutely. The source highlights these crossovers as key. Started with the private practice backdoor pilot.
Yeah.
Initially, often character intros or brief visits like Addison returning during the strike or Amelia's early visits, relatively contained.
Right.
But as the universe matured, the source points out, they evolved into these complex multi-episode arcs. Genuinely drove plot, character relationships, institutional crises across shows.
Events like the Addison Archer Montgomery storyline, the Joe's bar crash, Chief Ripley's death, the recent wildfire event, those are noted as prime examples showing that deep interconnectedness.
Exactly. Characters from both shows converging for a complex medical crisis. Doctors and firefighters injured together. Station 19 characters interacting deeply with Grey's doctors during a loss, responding together to citywide disasters. It makes the universe feel incredibly grounded and real. Like these characters genuinely share a city, respond to its crises together, elevates the storytelling beyond single-show events.
The source materials afterward section offers a valuable, broader perspective on the legacy of this universe. Its longevity over 2 decades, hundreds of episodes across 3 series, is noted as a significant achievement.
The source attributes it to its ability to continuously evolve while staying emotionally resonant.
It calls the narrative a weave of high-stakes medical drama and intricate personal stories, love, loss, ambition, resilience, creating characters that have become genuine cultural touchstones.
The expansion through private practice and Station 19 is seen as enriching the main narrative. Exploring different facets, private practice in LA, first responders in Seattle, broadens the scope, introduces diverse perspectives, shows the hospital as part of a larger community, complements the core setting.
What's particularly fascinating, and the source points this out as key to its relevance, is the universe's willingness to tackle contemporary social and ethical issues.
Yes, it gives several powerful examples. addressing systemic healthcare problems, exploring #MeToo through the Harper Avery scandal, examining mental health with nuance like DeLuca's bipolar disorder, dedicating season 17 to the realities of the COVID-19 pandemic on frontline workers. This engagement, the source suggests, keeps the shows relevant, sparks discussion, deepens audience connection.
Character departures are inevitable over 20-plus years. The source notes they're navigated differently. Contrast Cristina Yang's carefully plotted exit.
Right, offered a prestigious position fitting your arc.
Versus Alex Karev's exit, which it notes required more unconventional storytelling methods due to off-screen factors. The letters explaining he left Joe for Izzie and their kids.
Both memorable, the source notes, if sometimes debated, parts of the lore.
And finally, the source concludes by highlighting the universe's capacity for regeneration, introducing new generations like the season 19 interns.
Exactly. Simone, Lucas, Blue, Jules, Mika. They arrive, inherit the hospital's complex legacy, face their own trials, mirrors the real cycle of medical training. This cyclical nature, the source suggests, keeps the narrative fresh, allows exploration of contemporary challenges through new eyes while connecting back to the original stories.
So there you have it, a deep dive into the incredibly dense, dramatic, and deeply interconnected timeline of the Grey's Anatomy universe, all pulled directly from this remarkable compendium. From the original M.A.G.I.C. interns arriving at Seattle Grace to the brink of another potential disaster in that stunning latest season finale cliffhanger. We've charted over 2 decades of interwoven stories.
By extracting these key events, character arcs, institutional changes, and crossover moments directly from the source, we hope we've given you a clearer, more connected picture of how this medical dynasty unfolded and how its many parts connect. It's truly a testament to consistent, long-form world-building over a remarkable run.
And it really reminds us that even in these fictional worlds dealing with life and death daily, the stories of the people, their loves, losses, ambitions, triumphs, mistakes, are the true pulse keeping the narrative heart beating, resonating with audiences for so long. The source shows how these individual journeys are constantly shaped by both the medical cases and the larger events happening around them.
This depth of lore invites you to consider how personal stories and global events constantly shape these characters' lives, often unpredictably, profoundly. Reflects how complex and chaotic life can be inside and outside the hospital walls.
What stands out to you from this timeline? What moments resonated most deeply as we charted this course through medical history, personal tragedy, and unexpected connections?
For us, the sheer ability of this universe to continuously rebuild after immense tragedy, both literal destruction, like the plane crash leading to a new hospital name, and figurative loss of beloved characters, and to consistently integrate new life, new relationships, new challenges while honoring its past. That's truly fascinating from a storytelling perspective.
A provocative thought to leave you with, drawn directly from the source's reflection. How does a narrative universe built on constant change, character departures, and the introduction of new generations manage to maintain its core identity and emotional connection with its audience over such a long period? It's quite the balancing act, isn't it? A kind of narrative regeneration mirroring the cycles of life and death in the hospital.
Something to mull over. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the Grey's Anatomy universe.
We'll see you next time for another deep dive into a new stack of sources.